All right. Well, thank you everyone who's joined this webinar. This is the Success That Matters virtual showcase, and we're excited to have you with us. With me, my panelists are Rob Leonards. Rob is our Director of Field Team here at Man in the Mirror, and Dale Redder is our Vice President of Operations, and he's with us as well. Both of them will be helping us answer questions and talking a little bit later on. And I'm going to be your host. My name is Brian Richardson. I'm the Director of Resources here at Man in the Mirror. And just really excited to have you guys with us. Some housekeeping items before we start. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to those questions as soon as we can. Rob and Dale will be helping answer some of those questions. And then at the end of this webinar, we'll be taking some of the ones that we want to answer for everyone, for the whole group, and we'll answer those live. So that's some housekeeping things for today. Again, thank you for joining us, and let's get started here. All right, so Success That Matters. Let me give you a little overview before we get started. So for those of you who are new to Man in the Mirror, or maybe new to Man in the Mirror events, we've been doing events for about 25 years now, and it's a huge cornerstone of our ministry, and we have 5 different events. They all reach different levels of men, and men at different areas and different parts of their spiritual journey. And you can see that here. This is our website, just a picture of our website. And as you can see, more than 1,300 events and 116,000 men since 1996 we've reached with our events. So, it's one of the main things we do, and we love them, mostly because it's not just a thing to do for your men, but it's going to get men into relationships with other men and growing on their spiritual journey. So that's why we do them. We don't do them just to put something on your calendar. We do them so that you can disciple your men over the long term and see them grow in their faith. So let's keep going here. So we're going to talk about today, specifically, our Success That Matters event. Success That Matters is our most popular men's event. We've done 850 events, and when I looked that up, I couldn't believe we've done 850 Success That Matters events over the years. So it's by far our most popular event, one of our first events we've ever done. And for today, we're going to focus on Success That Matters. Success That Matters is designed to reach specifically men on the fringe of the church and what we would call cultural Christians. What we mean by that is they may not have stepped across the line of faith just yet. They come to church, they come, bring their family to church. They know it's important, but they might not have, they're not committed to Christ, maybe not reading the Bible regularly. So this event specifically is designed to reach those guys. However, it's great for all men. It's important stuff, really practical stuff that men, will use no matter where they are on their journey of faith. So, like I said, this is not meant to just be another box you check on the church calendar. We really want to give you a process to follow to get your men into long-term growth. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on here. And as you can see, there's results to back it up. So during our events, historically, one third of the men that attend surrender or resurrender their lives to Christ, which is amazing. And so we're so grateful that it has that kind of an impact. And even more than that, 2/3 join the follow-up groups. And that's where the real change happens, as we've seen. Men getting into some short-term follow-up groups where they can build relationships and go deeper in those relationships and hopefully get connected into the church, into some long-term stuff. And then we'll talk more about that as well. So what is it specifically? It's a 6-hour event. And over those 6 hours, there are 4 teaching sessions, and we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go on here. There is small group discussion, so we suggest that men sit around tables and can talk with the men around their table after each session and go a little bit deeper into some discussion questions that we offer them. Obviously, providing food is essential to this, and any men's event, you want food. And finally, every one of our events, including Success That Matters, ends with a presentation of the gospel. We want men to have the opportunity to say yes to Christ. So we always end it with a presentation of the gospel. It can be done as a multiple day event. It can be done as a men's conference. It can be done as a one-day event. So it's flexible in the way that you present it. So guys have used it as a retreat for their men, or they've used it just as a one-day event to get men excited about what's going on in the church. And here's kind of a brief look at what a sample itinerary might look like. So this is a one-day event itinerary on a Saturday. You can see the session titles. So that sessions are finding purpose in your life, finding respect and honor at home, and that's mostly talking about children and raising children, and just kind of what that looks like as a person that's trying to find success that matters. And then there's discussion times, lunch, a third session, and finding a new best friend in your wife, and finally finding a deeper relationship with God. And so the content for this is great content designed for men that are looking for these things. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of the difference between what men think they want and what they really need. And so obviously these are things that all men want. They want purpose. They want, meaning in their life. They want well-behaved children and good relationship with their wives. And finally, they just want, a deeper relationship with God. And so we kind of break that down biblically. Well, what does that look like? What does the Bible have to say about it? And what is the difference between, success, a worldly success, and what is a success that matters biblically? So that's kind of a breakdown of what the event looks like. And you choose your format. So all of our events are offered in two different formats. And the first one is You Teach It. And what we mean by You Teach It is we provide you with all the materials you need to present it yourself. So you don't need a faculty member, somebody from Man in the Mirror to come out to your church and present it. You can do that yourself. And we give you all the materials you need to do so. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what those materials are. And then the other one is faculty led. So we have professional faculty that have been trained and have done tons of these events that can come out to you and do it. And that's another option for you to take advantage of. So what's new about Success That Matters? So what we're so excited about and why we're talking about Success That Matters today is it is completely new and updated event in partnership with a Christian publisher called David C. Cook. So you might be familiar with David C. Cook. They publish books, but they also publish curriculum. And they specialize in curriculum development and digital curriculum development. So we partnered with them to completely modernize and update our materials for Success That Matters. And the exciting thing about it is now we offer digital delivery. And what we mean by that is rather than us sending you a box of materials and you have to decide what size event you think you're going to have, how many men are going to come, how many promotional materials, and pay according to the package size. Well, now we just give you all of that as a digital download. All you need to do is when you order your package, you get access to all the materials, and there's no limit to the amount you can download, the amount you can print, and the amount that you can access all those materials. So it's real simple and easy to use, and it gives you a way to access it right away without needing to wait for a box to arrive at your door and then forget it in the back closet when the person that answers the door puts it away in a closet. So really excited about that. David C. Cook did a great job of organizing all of that on a dedicated website that you would access your materials on. And so we'll look at those a little bit later here. So what will you receive as part of the package? Well, planning materials is the first thing, and this is really the bread and butter of our events is the planning materials we provide you with, because we have broken it down into a plan that you can follow so you don't have to try to reinvent the wheel and figure it out as you go. We've done, as I said, hundreds and hundreds of these events. So we break it down by timeline. 12 weeks out, what do I need to do? 8 weeks out, what should I be doing? Promoting the event, planning all the different logistics, recruiting people to help with the different things you'll need to do. So we provide you with all the ways of doing that, as well as the best practices we've learned throughout the years doing this. What else will you receive? Well, promotional materials. We give you graphics. I've showed you a couple of those graphics already on this presentation, and logos as well for you to use in social media, website, bulletin inserts, flyers. So we give you everything you need to get the word out to as many men as possible. And then we provide you speaker materials. So if you decide to teach this yourself, we're going to give you the PowerPoint templates. We're going to give you really detailed outlines from our speakers teaching it, with every single thing you need to point you need to hit, fill in the blank you need to say, broken down really easily and simply for you to really follow along as you prepare and teach it. And the really exciting thing about this one, Success That Matters in particular, is that we have professionally done videos of two of our faculty members, Brett Clemmer, who is our president, and David Delk, who's a former president and now is a full-time pastor in South Carolina. So they teach this, and you can use those professional videos to either prepare for this event yourself, or we'll talk about an option of how you could use this as a video event. If you don't have a speaker that feels comfortable doing this live in front of a group, you can use those videos in place of a live speaker if you want. We give you that option. Obviously, we prefer a live event with a live speaker. I think that gets the most engagement, and that's what we've seen, but you have the option. And then finally, attendee materials. So these are the things that you're actually going to give to the attendees that show up. So you can print the session outlines where they can take notes, and there's discussion questions, and it's actual thing they can take home. And then the other thing is the follow-up workbooks. So we, with all of our events, there's a 6-week follow-up that comes out of the event. And so we have full color follow-up workbooks you can print, or you can order them from Man in the Mirror pre-printed. We give you that option. So those are really nice, and we'll look at those in a second here. All right, well, let's kind of take a look at each of these things individually. So the first thing was the planning guide. And so as you can see, it's broken down with check marks and exactly what's the next step we need to take to make sure we're on schedule and on time. So you can see that here. Here we're talking about get your pastor support. And we're talking about making an appointment with your pastor, sharing the vision of this event and why it's so important, talking about the 6-week small groups that will follow the event, and talking about how public support is so important, and that it's not on his shoulders, which takes the pressure off your pastor, which is awesome. So this is kind of what it looks like. This is just an example of that. And as you go along, you'll see that it's just taking you step by step through the process, making it super easy. So how about the presenter outline? So it looks a little bit like this. Like I said, very detailed, takes you session by session with an illustration. You can even fill in your own illustrations if you like, or use ours. Where it is in the PowerPoint section, and it just breaks it down, every point you need to hit along the way. The attendee handouts, here's what the attendee handouts look like. As you can see here, session 1, finding the purpose of your life. And it kind of breaks it down step by step with fill in the blanks, and you can see the group discussion questions and next steps that matter. So this is what they'll be using during the small group discussion times. And here's the example of the follow-up workbooks. So these are really nicely done, professionally printed workbooks, like I said. And in each session, there's 6 sessions. There's going to be kind of a little devotional, as well as scripture to memorize, talking about, and this particular one is the rat race. So it's gonna kind of take over where the event left off and kind of go deeper into some of these things that men are dealing with when it comes to their career, their relationships, their family, their time management, financial issues. So it's going to go deeper into some of these things, and it's going to have discussion prompts and some next steps for them to take along the way. All right, so here's a really important part of all of our events, and that's the process that we give you to follow to make sure that your event is successful and to make sure that your men don't just come to an event but get involved into long-term growth and get plugged into all the different things you already have going on. And we call that the create, capture, sustain cycle. So let's talk about that a little bit. So this is based on a process that we call the No Man Left Behind model. You don't need to know the No Man Left Behind model to do an event, but if you've been through a No Man Left Behind training with us, you'll already have some of these key concepts that we'll be giving you the process to follow for your event. So the big vision for your event is to make disciples. And so the create, capture, sustain cycle helps you really move that vision along. And we're going to break it down, what that looks like at your event here in a second. And as I said, it's the engine that drives your discipleship and your vision of making disciples is the create, capture, sustain. So let's talk about what that looks like. And most of all, the exciting thing about this is you don't have to do it on your own. We have a team of area directors around the country, and a lot of you, I'm sure, were invited by an area director to this webinar. But we have a team that can walk alongside you. They work for free. They raise their own funds, so they don't charge you anything. But they can help you maximize the impact of the events that we offer, and anything you do, really. But they can come alongside you for an event. So I've asked Rob to talk a little bit about our area director team and how they can help you with your event.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. So as Brian said, we do have area directors all across the country. We've currently got 63 area directors nationally. We're looking to hire more all the time. So, and they're men's ministry consultants. They specialize in helping churches, leaders, pastors be more intentional with their men's discipleship efforts. And so with events, as Brian has outlined very specifically, these step-by-step items that the information that you guys get that you can do, the area directors can walk alongside you. They're good sounding boards for you guys. They can come in and suggest different ways to approach many of the things that we do. Many of the steps they can help you implement, help you think through, does this make sense? Does that make sense? So these guys are local boots on the ground that will come, they'll pray with you, they'll help you organize, they'll help you plan, they'll help you understand and how to implement a lot of this stuff, because it can be overwhelming sometimes, right? And so we're hopeful that leaders will rely on the effectiveness and the expertise of our field staff. And so area directors would love to come in and work with you, help you maximize the efforts, the time, to see more men becoming discipled. And so that's kind of what our area director team does. They're local resources for you guys. They want to invest in you. They want to see you guys succeed. They want to see more men become discipled. And so they're willing to do whatever they can to help you with that process. So that's a little bit about our area director team.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, if you don't have an area director or you don't know who your area director is, you can contact us on our website, maninthemirror.org, and we'll connect you to your area director, and they can start working with you right away if you would like. You don't need to buy an event to start working with an area director, but if you are looking for an event to start kicking off some of the activity, the men's stuff in your church and get men excited about things again, that is a great way to maximize the effort, is to connect with your area director first. So let's talk about that a little bit. I will mention that this is, if you're thinking along the lines of a Man in the Mirror event, we really recommend that you start planning ahead of time. So I know a lot of churches and leaders, a lot of people on this call are already thinking about the fall. So now is the perfect time, even if you don't do a Man in the Mirror event, if you're looking for a way to get men back into the church. A lot of men, as we've seen in some of the surveys that have come out, men are not coming back to church. They're falling away, and churches are having a harder time getting them back because of all the restrictions and the closing down church. So this is a perfect way to do that. This is a perfect way to start some momentum going again for your men and start thinking about the fall ahead of time to really get men excited about what's going on in your church, in the fall. So let's go a little bit deeper into this create, capture, sustain, and what that looks like for an event. And we'll explain what that's like here in a second here. So what do we mean by create value? Well, we want to give, what we say is we want to give men what they need in the context of what they want. So what we mean by that is, men want, what men need is to be disciples of Jesus Christ. As leaders and as pastors, we know that. But what men want, especially men that aren't as connected to the church, or maybe you're on the fringe of the church, they're looking for meaning and purpose. They're looking for, a loving and lasting marriage. They're looking for children that are doing the right things and are well adjusted, and that love them, and that they need help with that kind of thing, and they want financial security. So what Success That Matters does is we talk about those things, but in the context of the Bible. So we're talking about meaning and purpose, as the Bible defines it, and we're talking about, like I said, finding a new best friend in your wife, and how to have respect and honor at home. So it's talking about all the different keys to doing those things, and obviously we're bringing in scripture along the lines to help them think through these things a little bit deeper, and how God would want them to think through these things. So the second step is, okay, we've gotten them to an event, we've gotten them excited about something that they're looking for. We've created value for the men. Okay, well now what do we do is we capture that momentum. So the way we capture momentum for events is we always offer men a right next step. And all of our events are designed to do that. We want it to be short term. So in this case, it's a 6-week follow-up group. It's believable, it's achievable. They're not committed to a super long study of a book of the Bible or something along those lines, where a guy is like, I can't do that. It's too much. I got too many commitments going on. So it's something that they can commit to, and it has an endpoint. So they know it's not going to be forever. It's just going to be for 6 weeks. I can do that. So it's an achievable thing for most guys. And then finally, it's focused on relationships. So we're not just trying to teach guys stuff. We're trying to get them into relationships with other guys in their church. So that's the reason why we're forming some of these men's groups coming out of this event, is we want them connected to other men, where we know that that's where real change takes place, where they're rubbing shoulders and learning from other men that are a little bit farther along in their faith, or just finding someone that they can talk to. A lot of guys are isolated and disconnected from other men in their lives. Maybe they don't have a father figure that they've had in their lives, or they are looking for, maybe even someone to mentor. So that's what we're trying to do, is connect these men into these relationships so that they can move forward and help each other as they grow in their faith. And one of the most important parts of this is to make sure that we get on-site commitments. So what we mean by that is we don't let them leave the event until they've either decided, yes, I'm going to join the follow-up group, or no, I can't join the follow-up group. So we're getting a commitment from them before they leave. And so let me
I want to give you the opportunity right now to join a group of guys like I did. I want to give you the opportunity right now to join a group of guys like I did those years ago and helped change everything for me. I think it will change everything for you as well. So we're going to invite you to join a 6-week follow-up group. Now, the groups will meet once a week for about an hour to an hour and a half tops. The workbook that you've got is very thin. It's very easy to do. You can do this, okay? You could stand on your head for an hour a week for 6 weeks if you needed to. And I can't tell you how important it is to me that you get involved in these small groups. So here's what we're going to do. Around the room are guys that have already agreed to be a follow-up group leader. And in a minute, they're going to each stand up, and they're going to tell you where and when their group is going to meet. Now, as they share the location and the time of their group, I want you to listen and pick the group that seems the most convenient for you, because you're only going to be in the group for 6 weeks, and then you can decide what you want to do from there. So when we break, the guys are going to get up, they're going to introduce themselves, they're going to tell you where and when the group is going to meet, and then I want you to get up out of your seat when they're done and go and get into a group with one of those guys. Make the commitment for 6 weeks. It will change everything about how you live your life. It will help your marriage, it will help you as a dad, and it will help you find meaning and purpose in your life.
So that's just an example of Brett Clemmer, our president, doing the ask, getting men to make the on-site commitment. So we show you how to do that. But it's so important that we do that at every event, so that's how we've gotten 2/3 of the men attending these events to join a follow-up group. And it's so important that we do that every time we do anything. We always give a man a next right step to take that next step in their journey. So finally, let's talk about the final step in the Create, Capture, Sustain cycle, which is sustaining the change that's begun in the men's hearts and lives. And so the way we do that is we make sure that after the follow-up step, so the 6 weeks are up, we need to make sure we're connecting men to the best long-term discipleship opportunities in their church. And so the way we do that is we build bridges. And what we mean by building bridges is we make sure it's real easy for a guy to say, okay, I've done this. This is the next step. So we're not connecting them to something that's way too far advanced for them. It's a 24-week study in the book of Revelation. It's just give them the right next step that fits for them, and don't just point them to, hey, you need to go do that thing. Bring them, show them how to get there. If it's as simple as meeting them in the parking lot, having a guy bring them to the room that the next thing, or even if it's a barbecue, if it's an event, show them how to get there so they don't feel like they have to figure it out on their own. Guys aren't going to go to something if they have to try to figure it out on their own, as you guys obviously know. And finally, your area director can help you plan your long-term strategy. So you might know already the things that you would want to plug men into from a create value event like Success That Matters, but you might not. So your area director can really show you how to do that and start thinking through some of the things that you have already going on to connect them to keep growing. Or if you don't have something, develop something. If there's a gap in your discipleship strategy. So I'm going to let Dale introduce this next. This is a success story of a church that he worked with and how they've sustained the change in their ministry after doing a Success That Matters event.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so the video that you're going to watch here is from Jim DeHorn from Fellowship Reformed Church. It's actually the church that I attended when I lived in Hudsonville, Michigan. And it was actually my first exposure to the ministry, Man in the Mirror. So it was an impactful event for me, and it was impactful for a lot of the guys at our church. And really, I think one of the biggest benefits that our events provide for churches is this long-term sustained step of the Create, Capture, Sustain cycle. So the event is the kind of the catalyst to get guys together, to get them excited, like Brian has said. The short-term follow-up is to help keep them going. And then the sustain is plugging them into something that's already going. Or in the case of Fellowship Reformed Church, what we saw was we had groups of guys that got together for that 6-week follow-up, and they ended up meeting for years afterward. So as Jim's going to talk about, this first event that we had was about 10 years ago. There's still groups that are meeting today based on those first groups that met 10 years ago after Success That Matters. So the guys are building relationships with each other. They're building a bond together. They're building trust with each other. They're pouring into each other's lives. They're going obviously through ups and downs together, and all pointing each other back to Christ, back to the Bible. And when that happens, these things last. And to me, that's one of the biggest benefits of our events is the long-term sustain opportunities that we see churches have.
I think it was nearly 10 years ago that Brett Clemmer flew up from Orlando to lead our Success That Matters men's event. My name is Jim DeHorn. I'm the Director of Adult Education and Discipleship here at Fellowship Reformed Church in Hudsonville, Michigan. I was relatively new in my position at the time, and it was kind of with fear and trepidation that we took on this event. But Jamie Turco and the participation guide, the material that we got from Man in the Mirror, made the preparation and the event very successful. So I would really encourage you, if you're interested, to start. Our event brought in about 300 to 350 men, and only about 50 of those were guys outside of our church. Now, at the time, we didn't have any ministry to men. So this event was the organizational event that kind of spurred our ministry to men over the next 10 years. Brett helped us put together about 12 small group men's Bible studies. And as of today, we have 9 weekly men's Bible studies still ongoing. Some of those Bible studies morphed from the event that we had. We even have a Bible study called Dawn Patrol that meets once a month. And at that Bible study, we use Pat Morley's Friday morning Bible study video as the basis for our discussion. Over the years, we've used Books in the Box quite a bit. Our men enjoy it, and we've distributed books throughout the church. And a lot of our guys like to use Patrick Morley's book, Is Christianity for You, as an evangelistic tool. It's a wonderful way for them to kind of open the door as they try to share their faith with others. Man in the Mirror is a powerful ministry, and I would encourage anybody that's at least even thinking about hosting a Success That Matters event to go ahead and do it. You will not be sorry.
So we're really grateful for Jim for recording that, and he's just a great example of following the process that we've given him and really taking it to heart. And as you can see, they still have groups that are meeting 10 years later from a Success That Matters event. We hear that constantly, that groups are still meeting 10, 20 years later that came out of some of these events. And so that's what we're excited about, is the long-term opportunity. It's not just going to be an event that you forget about the next month and, hey, did we have something recently for men? I can't remember. No, because the men are still meeting and they're still growing. And so that's one of the things that really, I think, sets apart a Man in the Mirror event, and how we provide the follow-up curriculum as well as the process for you to follow to make sure that guys not only come to the event, but they get connected to these long-term groups afterwards. And so we have another story this is Jim Jeffrey. He's the executive pastor of discipleship at Chapel Point. And this is another church that Dale worked with. He's a very prolific area director, as you can tell. But we're really grateful for Jim recording this interview with us. It's a little bit long, so sit tight, but it's a great example of a success story of a church that's used specifically Success That Matters in our other events very effectively at their church.
Great. Good. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for joining us today. And we'd love to hear just a little bit about your experience with using the Man in the Mirror events. And I kind of wanted to go back to that first event that you did. If you could share with us when you did that, and really why you selected a Man in the Mirror event as opposed to just doing something else on your own.
Dale, glad to do that. And I'm very, very grateful for the impact that the resources of Man in the Mirror have had upon our men's ministry here at Chapel Point in Hudsonville, Michigan. And we did a Success That Matters as our very first seminar. We had a lot going for men's ministry. We had some different Bible studies and classes for men, and there was a lot of movement in a good way already happening. We wanted to do something in the summer to maximize our influence, and so decided that after you and I got to know one another and looked at all the resources that Man in the Mirror had, that Success That Matters would be a good place for us to start. And so we set it up so that we had men in our church who were already leaders. They may be leading small groups, maybe an elder or a deacon, that they would invite men to come and sit at a table with them. And so the format of having presentation that was so well put together, in terms of the content, in terms of the slides, and even the breakout sessions, all laid out so well, made it very easy for us then to be able to do our own presentation. Several of us on pastoral staff have our own guys interacting with the men in the church and using that format. We then were able to build on that in terms of meeting 6 times over the summer with those same groups of men and go deeper in the relationships because the follow-up material was already there. So it was just designed around a very interactive learning model. And for us, learning was not just about content, but about transformation. We wanted to see lives changed of men. And so even the topics of dealing with finding your purpose in life and developing homes where there was respect and honor and becoming with your mate, your wife, that friend that you needed to have. And then really thinking about deepening your relationship with God. So we wanted to start with that clarity of purpose with those primary relationships in the lives of a man. And it really, really worked so well for us.
So tell me a little bit about, as you were preparing, so you and your senior pastor, I believe, led the sessions.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about how it was for you to prepare and then also lead those sessions? And then, as far as the response from the men, how did you feel that actual weekend went with the guys?
Well, it was really easy for us to take and to personalize. You've got a teaching or preaching is truth poured through personality. And it was very easy for us to adapt to our personality, to our setting here. And we just divided up, which topic we were going to speak on. The men, we just had a great time. We had a big brisket dinner for the guys. So that, of course, brings them together. And did a Friday night and a part day Saturday, big breakfast on Saturday as well. And so the event, we really promoted it well. But having our own men invite other guys to come and sit at the table with them was one of the key things. That there was a lot of promo, but there was just that personal recruitment too, of man on man, inviting guys that they're already in their network, their relationship, their care group, and it really worked well. Men appreciated. They said this has been so extremely helpful. The quality of it, and over the summer, watching these men continue to meet together to follow up, to drive it deeper into their lives was one of the things we heard. That it wasn't just a one and done kind of event, but really the opportunity to be able to say, let's get this into the muscle tissue of our discipleship, of our following of Christ, and make sure it really becomes new habits and new ways of living.
Great. So how have you seen the results of those follow-up groups? You still have an impact from those follow-up groups, even from that first event?
Oh, yeah. The best way to say it is it became a movement. It didn't just become an event. It became a spiritual movement in our church. And Pastor Joel, our lead pastor, then began to have annually a class of men that we'd have a large gathering of men in our gym or meet together and to pour into them. And again, using the same format of having table leads and having the discussion there. And that continued to develop in our church, so much so that the ladies in our church are saying, hey, we want to catch up with our husbands. We want to catch up with what God's doing here. So it really has had that effect. And we've done 2 other events as well, following up on that. So we did Rock Solid Men and Playbook, and each of those had an impact upon the men of our church.
That's great. So what would you say you would consider as the greatest impact of the results of doing that first event with Man in the Mirror? How has that changed your ministry to men at Chapel Point?
I think the life on life small group discipleship of men impacting other men. So taking men and giving them a platform, those who were spiritually mature, those who were able to lead, giving them the tools and resources and a platform to be able to multiply in other men. Doing 2 Timothy 2:2 of godly men teaching other men who can teach others also. And so the multiplication factor that men who didn't see themselves as leaders now leading and multiplying leaders in the home, in the workplace, in the church has been, I think, the greatest thing. developing leaders who multiply in others.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate your time. We just really wanted to give just a little brief overview on your experience with the events so that we could share with these guys on this call tonight. If you had any last words for these guys, any advice, what would it be?
I would be excited to just see a movement of God among men in churches where they are, if they're not followers of Christ, that they would become believers, and if they are followers of Christ, that they would grow towards maturity, that they would come to that place where loving Christ more than self, more than money, more than any other relationship, that they would step up and serve, and that they would become leaders, that we would help men take next steps of following Christ. It's got to be clear, and they have to have living examples of that. And that's where I think that if we can develop men who are leaders, who multiply in other men, the movement of God will be great in churches.
That's great. Thank you so much again for your time, Jim.
Okay, always good to see you, Dale. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Well, I think that was a great example, and we really appreciate Jim taking the time to do that with Dale. He's a great guy. If you want to reach out to, we get this question every once in a while. Can you reach out to a leader that's done this? He would be a great person to reach out, and we can always connect you to him. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer your questions about what they've done in the past and what they continue to do for these events. And so we thank you for Jim's time doing that with us. All right, so we've had a couple questions. Okay, well, now that you know what it is, okay, well, how do we get it? So we have, as I said earlier, there's a dedicated website. I'm going to put this in the chat, but it is successthatmatters.org. So if you want to check out more about this event that we've been talking about today, you can go to that website. There's a free preview button that you can find at the top, and you can download examples of all the materials that we've discussed today and check it out for yourself. So there's samples of the speaker presentations, there's samples of the session outlines, the follow-up workbooks, the videos. We have samples of pretty much all of our materials there that you can download for free and get a taste of what to expect when you sign up to order this package. So there was a question, how much does this cost? Well, regularly it's $4.99, but we're really pleased to offer you, thanks to David C. Cook, for everyone on this call, 25% off the regular price of $4.99. So you're looking at, $125 off this event to make it very affordable. And if you use coupon code SUCCESS for the next week, you'll get that 25% off of your event package. So really excited to offer that to you guys today. I will say if you're, you want to take some time to make a decision, we do give a money back guarantee. So if you decide to order the package and take advantage of the 25% off, if you download the materials and you feel like, yeah, this isn't gonna really fit our plans, or it's not exactly what you were expecting, we will give you a full refund if you just let us know it's not going to fit your needs, and we're happy to do that if you need a little bit more time to make a decision but want to take advantage of that coupon code. So again, successthatmatters.org. You can find out more about the event. There's some questions there that you can get answered, just simple frequently asked questions, and some event planning info that we didn't talk about on the webinar today. All right, so we're going to open up the Q&A time right now. And so if you haven't answered, or you haven't asked your question, please do so in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen now. And we're just going to take these one at a time and answer your question. So first one, I'm going to answer this live. So Dave Armstrong asks, how effective is the Success That Matters for millennial men? And I would say, as a millennial and having been to a Success That Matters, even if you're not married or don't have kids yet, or if you're just a guy that's not connected to the church, obviously this is hitting things that are really important to pretty much every man. So things about meaning and purpose to life, relationships. So we don't talk just about your wife. We talk about just relationships in general. And when it talks about kids, we're also talking about mentoring relationships. So these are things that, you know, millennial men obviously resonate with. So it's definitely effective for younger guys that are looking for some of these things that they might not have. And the biggest way I would say to get any man, but specifically millennial men, to come to an event like this is a guy in your church has a relationship that is a millennial reaching out to him. So, I mean, the way you're going to get men to come to an event is personal relationships of guys going out and inviting guys to come to something and continuing to follow up and just say, hey, I would love for you to come. I'll bring you if you'd like. And that's how you're going to really see guys attend an event, is if you have those personal invitations from your guys in your church. And so we give you some suggestions of how to do that, best practices to get your guys excited. If you have a team of guys that can go out and recruit and invite men, that's the best way to do it. But I would say, you know, personal relationships is going to be the way you get men to come, and all the other stuff, the you know, flyers, the social media, that's all ground cover to remind guys, hey, there's something coming up. So those personal relationships are key, not only for millennial men, but for all men. Another question that we got from an anonymous person is, will there be any type of support from Man in the Mirror staff as we get closer to the date of the event? And yes, so we do have some emails that go out when you purchase your event. You'll get emails with tips and things to do as you get closer to your event. And if you have specific questions, we're always open for email. Email us at events@maninthemirror.org, and we can schedule a call with you to talk over any of the questions that you might have, you know, any details. And of course, if your area director is connected, ask him. You know, he's there to help you along the way with some of these things, that if you don't know exactly how to do something, he'll help you do it. Somebody asked, do we suggest that we print booklets or have a vendor print the books? And I would say, if you have the ability, if you have the capability to print color, that's why we provide it to you, to give you a low cost option. If you want professionally printed versions, you can get them from Man in the Mirror, and we tell you all about that in the event manual and how to do that. And they're very inexpensive, and they're, you know, full color, really nice. So if you want professionally printed at a low cost, you can get them from Man in the Mirror at low cost. Of course, you can do your own, recruit your own vendor to do so, but that would be on your time and on your dime. So definitely can be done, but I would recommend either printing it yourself or ordering them from Man in the Mirror. We already, one of the questions we got was, can this event be useful for men that are married or not, or have children? Absolutely. We already talked about that. And I would say, you know, we still talk about relationships in general, and mentoring relationships and father-son connections as well. So if you're a son, don't have kids, but you're a son, we talk about the relationship with your father and how important it is to be built into by either a father or a older man that can pour into your life. Let's see here. So we had a question. Can I get a version of this presentation to share with my pastor? Absolutely. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but we're recording this, and so we'll make it available after this is over. And we're going to post that link on either our website, or we'll send the link out directly to you so you can watch this and share it with your pastor as well. All right, any other questions here? I see that Dale and Rob are busy answering questions in the chat box here. I'll take another question. Wayne Burrows is one of our area directors in New York, and he asks, does the event download expire? No, it doesn't. So you can have as much time as you need to print all the materials and prepare. So if it's 6-9 months down the line before you can do an event, you have plenty of time to access your materials, and there's no expiration date on that.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Here's a good one from Evans. I'm not quite sure how to answer this one. In the STM PowerPoint presentations, are there images or videos embedded that can be downloaded separately so that we could avoid import issues with our current software?
Ooh, that's a very detailed question. Can you
Yeah.
repeat the question so I know exactly how to answer it?
Yeah, are there images or videos presented embedded in our PowerPoint that might pose problems as somebody imports it, like into ProPresenter?
Gotcha. So I believe in the templates, there's definitely not videos embedded. We give you the videos separately for that. I believe there are images, so that there might be some technical issues we could help you with that, but we can figure that out for you. So no worries there. Any other questions that we can answer?
What
One
is
question
the?
here. Oh,
Go ahead, Dale.
sorry.
Go ahead, buddy.
One question, Brian, about the printed material, the cost of the printed material. If they were to buy it from us, what would they cost?
Yeah, so the printed materials, they can get them for $5 a workbook. So those are just the follow-up workbooks that are full color and professionally printed. So they're $5 a workbook if they get them from us.
Do we have a lower age limit, Brian, that you would recommend? Teens, young boys, what would the lower end of that age look?
I would say teens is probably what, geared towards, when we say men, we'd say, kind of teenage boys. We're not going to go into anything too racy that wouldn't be appropriate for a teenager. So we've definitely had men bring their teenage boys and they've gotten a lot out of the material for sure. So I would definitely recommend, older teenagers could come to this event for sure.
Nice.
So one question that is a good question from one of our area directors, and this goes back to what we talked about as our No Man Left Behind training. So you're not required to have gone through a training to be able to host an event. You don't need that. We provide everything you need, and the process is as you work the process and how to do it. You don't need to be trained to do this. So as far as follow-up groups, I had a couple questions about follow-up groups. We give you a real easy way to train the follow-up group facilitators. They're not leaders, so they're not teaching any material. They don't have to be Bible scholars or guys that have been teaching Sunday school or anything like that. We give you the process and a very easy step-by-step instructions for follow-up leaders to follow just to facilitate discussion. So they're not required to do anything but just keep guys on task, make sure that they're on time, they're keeping to a time, they're helping kind of lead discussion and, pull some answers out of guys that maybe aren't going to speak up right away. So we give you all the tips and best practices we've seen churches do and what we teach churches to do that way. Oops. So we got a couple more questions here, but I don't want to keep people. If you don't have any questions, feel free to drop off. That's the end of our presentation. But just to wrap it up, if you still need help and you don't have an area director you can ask, you can always contact Man in the Mirror and myself at events@maninthemirror.org if you still have questions. You can find out more, as I said, at successthatmatters.org, and I'll put all this information in the chat as well. If you want more information about the event, you want to download some preview materials that you can check out before you purchase, that's an option for you. And so that's about it. Thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to have
Brian,
this.
before we jump off, there
we're
was
not gonna
one
jump off.
question that I think might be helpful for some to hear.
Yep.
So there was a question about the long-term sustain groups. Would it make sense to plug guys into mixed groups, so couples groups or things like that for the long-term sustain? I think that's possible that they could do that. Obviously, from this event, we've got the 6-week follow-up that we would prefer. It's the men-only group for 6 weeks. But plugging guys into a long-term sustain group could work with couples groups. Now, the one thing that we know is men won't talk about certain things with mixed company. So there may be some things that are missed there, but it doesn't mean that we can't disciple men in the couples groups. So one thing that we like to talk to our churches about is if you do have a mixed group, a couples group, that at least maybe monthly or however often you meet, you're giving them some time to meet just men only, just women only, so that you can dig in a little bit deeper on some of those topics that you may not want to share with mixed company. So long-term sustain is really about plugging guys into something where they can be engaged long-term, obviously. And if that's men only or mixed couples, it probably can work either way.
All right, I'm just answering some questions here in the chat. So I think that we've gotten all the main questions answered. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes if people have questions, but that's the end of our presentation. Really excited to do this, and thanks to Rob and to Dale to being on this call with us. If you've gotten something out of this, let us know. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any further questions, again, contact me, contact your area director. You can reach out to us, go to our website, maninthemirror.org, and there's some ways to contact us there as well and get connected to an area director. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hope you have a wonderful weekend and a great rest of your evening. Thanks.